small university in a very, very quaint town.
In a historic area that's surrounded by just great people who are willing to help and support the college life.
The students were amazing, the teachers incredible. Brockport's a small town feel. It's a college atmosphere.
I really love being in a small town on Main Street. I love the Main Street idea of how to live.
And even though it has that small feel, it's inviting and it's welcoming.
It has a very large commitment to education and capacity and development of the students.
They gave me real-life, applicable skills for exactly what I was going to expect and have expected working in the industry.
The faculty I had at Brockport had real-world experience, and what they taught me is exactly what I use today at my real world in television today.
It provides a learning environment that takes your talents and continues to develop those.
Learning to communicate, learning to navigate in the world, but it's also the opportunity to try things and say, is this for me? Do I enjoy this? And I think that diversity of experiences is what I think makes the college great still today.
I think one of the things they instilled in us was how important teaching was back then, and that it was a wonderful profession. And as I said, they were great instructors. I thought I was well prepared to go out into the teaching world when I graduated.
I was very overwhelmed coming to Brockport because I was the first in my family ever to go to college.
Brockport taught you that you have to create new opportunities and continue to drive forward and create opportunities for others along the way, and to make connections with as many people as you can and build on those relationships and value those relationships and surround yourself with people with similar morals and values, all working towards the same goal.
I really loved being a theater student and a theater major, and it was like being in showbiz in college.
I also covered Brockport's first football win ever over Cortland. A 19-6 victory in the mud and rain at Cortland on their homecoming day. And as a student correspondent for the Times-Union, that also got a great play the next day in the Times-Union.
I actually went to Brockport because I either wanted to be a phys ed teacher or on the radio, and I went on the radio because it seemed to be easier. You didn't have to work, you didn't have to stay in shape, I think was the reality of it.
When I came to Brockport for my BSN, my bachelor's in nursing, I actually had the opportunity to really see new horizons. Again, opening the doors for opportunities I would have never thought about. I never will forget Sheila Meyer. She was my advisor, and she actually spoke to me about the opportunities, like what do I want to do, where do I want to go. And I remember her having a conversation with me about being a member of Sigma Theta Tau, which is the Nursing Honor Society. And at the time I had no idea what that was, but she helped me understand what that organization had to offer, and it was something I aspired to. And I'll never forget the letter that I received and how proud I was to have been inducted into the International Honor Society for Nursing.
I actually applied for Brockport when I was still in Vietnam. I knew that I couldn't do anything I wanted to do without college degrees. I wanted to go into health. And Brockport seemed like it had a very reasonable program, a new program, and I applied and was accepted. And so I got out of the Army in May of '71. I went to Brockport in September of '71.
Brockport definitely supplied me with, a passion for television, but also me and my team working on Brockport Campus News worked really long hours. We put a lot of time into developing those skills, which ultimately, transfer into working in television.
I'll also never forget Dr. Scott during graduation, and again, not understanding how exciting it was to be a member of Sigma Theta Tau. I did not have honor cords for graduation, and I'll never forget that she took hers off and gave them to me to walk the stage, and I still have those cords today.
60s was when school actually started. The first convocation was held in the old administration building with all freshmen. And the dean, whose name was Rakoff, stood in front of us and charged us. And the way he charged us was say, look to the right, look to the left. One of those people won't be here long. This was kind of motivational for me, being anxious about the academic part and other things. I didn't want to be one of those people.
So my very fond memories are throwing a Frisbee every fall afternoon with my roommate Danny Morris, and that was my idea of where we go when we leave this world. We go to the Hartwell lawn and throw the Frisbee.
We could not have boys in the dorm. They could only enter this one little reception room, and that was it. And of course we had curfews. And I remember as a physical education major, I was not allowed to walk downtown in Brockport in shorts.
One of the experiences that was my first experience ever was to participate in a Halloween party on campus. And it was my first one, and I had no idea what to expect at a Halloween party, but until this day, I actually still have my Halloween costume as a bumblebee. And it's very fitting, people tell me today, because I'm a busy bee, and that was a really fond memory.
In 1979, the BSG president and vice president, Bob Hennessy and Sid Gilmore, kind of dragged me and got me involved. We did a lot of really interesting things. We started a bus service. At the time, there was no campus bus service around town. We started a check cashing service, which in the time before ATMs was a big deal, because as a student, you couldn't cash a check without paying a huge fee. We ran the box office. So it taught me how to run a business, really. It taught me how to project manage. It really gave me great experience in learning how to interact with, at the time what I called adults, but interact in an adult world.
I learned almost immediately that there were many, many good football players, better than me in fact, and that was a bit of a shock, I guess. And that, however, along with the academic program, led me to concentrate more on academics, and that was important for me.
Brockport actually was the host of a summer camp event, and I had the opportunity to be a nurse on duty for that opportunity. And it really taught me a lot about children. When they're away at a camp for the summer, some of the stressors that they go through, and really helped me to see the experience through the lens of a child.
There weren't very many female jib camera operators. There wasn't any female Steadicam operators, and so I asked why. Why aren't there any females that do this? It's just because people haven't taken advantage of the things that we have here. So what drives me is knowing that I can be an amazing operator and amazing at what I do, and it doesn't have to determine if I'm female or if I'm from Rochester or where I went to school. It's the fact that this is what I'm doing and I love it.
So Brockport is extremely connected, not only within camp abilities, but Brockport is also very connected within the field of adaptive physical education. We're down here in Maryland, and when you start meeting other adaptive physical education teachers along the state, there's always that one connection, and that connection is Brockport.
It taught me, a lot about the industry, and it made friends that I still have, 40 years later, almost 50 years later sometimes.
It was everything. Everything I'm doing in today's world is because of what I picked up, learned, experienced at Brockport.
One of the mementos that I saved over all the years, and I can't believe that I saved it, was my green and gold beanie that we wore as freshmen when we entered Brockport State Teachers College.
The tool I felt I got from Brockport was opportunity. It was the opportunity to learn, the opportunity to express myself in a free society. It was the opportunity to take and try to refine the tools I had.
It was an engaging place. It was a place where if you allowed it to, you could learn on a variety of levels in a variety of ways and give you life skills that you'll use forever.
Brockport's a place where you can learn to grow. It's a place where you can take chances. It's a place where you can fail, but it also helps pick you up and helps you become better in the long run.
It had a lot of opportunities for people, but it didn't feel like a massive campus. I felt like everything was within, just at my fingertips. I had a lot of opportunities, but I didn't feel like I was overstretching my boundaries in order to, develop those opportunities or get those opportunities.
So in those days we used typewriters, and I'm not sure how they sent it to New York, but they did. But anyway, they took a nice game story I wrote about a win over Army, 2-1 here on the Brockport campus. But the New York Times only gave it 2 paragraphs. But they did send me $5 for writing the story. So was I ever published in the New York Times? I can truthfully say yes to that.
I came home from Vietnam fairly wounded, mentally, not physically. I needed a lot of help, and that one-on-one support that I would get from professors like Arizulalian really helped me get through the rough spots in my education. I wasn't sure whether I could make it through an undergraduate school, and so I have to appreciate Brockport for what they did.
My one word that I would use to describe Brockport is spirit.
Cultivating.
Opportunities.
Engaging.
Commitment.
Well, as my grandsons today would say, awesome, Grandma, awesome.
I always told my wife if I ever won an award that I would thank her, so I'd like to thank my wife, Vicki Doyle, because without her, I'd be nothing, and that's actually true. But that to me is a hard question. There's so many people from the college that have meant so much to me back when I was a student. Even today, there are people at the college that I knew from the 70s, whether they were students and work at the college. I'd like to thank the institution, and frankly, I think, public higher education.
In terms of people who I would like to thank, first and foremost, of course, is my wife, Trudy. We've been married for 54 years. She has managed many household situations where I was not around because of my work hours. So I thank God for her patience and her fortitude.
Professors, that I'm still in contact with, family members, that are very supportive. There's plenty of trainers that I've had at ESPN now that have taken me to where I am, and it's been quite a journey. To pinpoint one particular person, I would like to thank my mother, if that's cliche, but she didn't go to college, and she has been so overwhelming supportive of me.
I'd certainly like to thank my father, Patsy, for his gift of compassion. I'd like to thank my mother, Teresa, for her spirit and ability to get things done and do things, to work hard. My Uncle Tony really acted as my father after my real father died. My stepfather, Glenn, came along in 1969 and held the family together as I was leaving for Vietnam and my sister was getting married. They all gave me this really kind of hard work ethics, this blue-collar mentality of work, and that's a wonderful thing. My friends, the friends I've made since elementary and high school, have been friends to this day, and I can call on them for anything.
Next for thank yous is Mrs. Jeanette DiAugustino Banker. She's from the Brockport class of '53. She's a college at Brockport emeritus professor. The college has undergone a number of name changes, as you probably well know. And she's been a friend of mine for about 50 years. She politely bugged me to stop talking about sports and telling sports stories. And she said, write them down. So I finally did get around to writing some of them down. She also is the one who nominated me for this honor, for which I am truly grateful and very appreciative.
I definitely want to thank my wife, who stuck with me through all of it. I've dragged her around to some of the less touristy places in this world, And she's always been there. And with her and my daughter Kara, they've been my grounding, my sounding board, my calm space. And certainly also the university. As I said, the university gave me the opportunity to move forward.
Now, other thanks go to Brockport grad class of 55, and former faculty member and retired superintendent of schools, Dr. Joe Del Rosso. Also, Brockport grad class of 82 and current Brockport communications professor, Mr. Warren Kozarewski. Also, another Brockport grad class of 61 and another person who wrote a letter of endorsement was Dr. Mike Layden. He's a retired Eastern Illinois science education professor.
I just again want to thank everyone for this opportunity. It's truly an honor and a privilege and very humbling.
And last but not least is an old friend of mine, basketball and baseball coach Ed Natofsky. He's also a Brockport grad, class of 57, and I appreciate what he wrote and all what the others wrote in these letters of recommendation.
I want to thank the Alumni Association for this award. Thank you very much. I want to thank my parents for, instilling the values of hard work. I want to thank my fiancée Marjorie just for the love and support. I mean, I need it. I couldn't be here without her. My son Riker, truly the love of my life. He just makes everything great. And it makes me want to leave a better world for him and everyone after me. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.